So I saw from a very early age the power of inspiration and opening up people's eyes to the world that there is.
Sure.
So through all our different walks in life, we began to realise that children actually need to be inspired in order to understand what there is to offer in the world.
Welcome to the show, Passion for Learning, Inspiring Leaders, where we're committed to having conversations on camera with inspiring head teachers and school leaders committed to making a remarkable difference to the next generation. On this episode, we have a lucky episode with two fascinating, inspiring associate head teachers. Rachel Speed and Paul Taylor are head teachers at this beautiful school in the heart of Newham, London, where they're committed to inspiring a vision that really impacts the whole community. And their Inspire vision is around innovation, nurturing, safe, personalized, independent, and resilient thinking that empowers their school community. Let's take it to the next level and learn from these remarkably inspiring leaders and talk about how they use their Inspire model to really raise the standards of recruitment and drive through any recruitment or any challenges that they may face as a school. Come on through and let's have a remarkable conversation. How did you create your values? How was it framed?
So we had 12 values that went across 2 years, and they were created about 4 years ago with the children. And then what we realised, this is something new actually that might be quite interesting, we realised that there were performance values in there, and then there were moral values. And we actually were finding it quite hard for the children to remember all of them. There were too many. And we wanted core values that went into our staff values, and you were going to speak about that, and then the children's values, but something that was really easy to remember, that were like an umbrella to the rest of the values. And so we worked with staff and we did parent surveys, children's surveys, and they're the ones that were the ones that underpin everything else.
Fantastic.
And they've been working really well. We're currently reviewing part of our curriculum, and we're actually going to be using those as the starting point and to lead into other areas. So they're good basis for lots of conversations as well.
And then you've got this massive, broad vision, which is around the Inspire, which I absolutely adore. It is brilliant. How did that concept come about?
So Inspire started, I think, for all of us in different ways, and we all bring our own experiences of how inspiration has been part of our lives. My own personal take on that is that my mother was the lead of an outdoor education centre, and she had new children that went down to her to stay. And being a single mother, I spent weekends, holidays at the outdoor centre. So I saw from a very early age the power of inspiration and opening up people's eyes to the world that there is. So through all our different walks in life, we began to realise that children actually need to be inspired in order to understand what there is to offer in the world. And therefore we started to build up a curriculum where we wanted children to see individuals that had built a legacy, individuals that had grown from nothing to everything. And so we've continued on that journey, and more recently we've had a whole school improvement priority, which has been around local success. And recently we had Reggie Nelson come in, who's doing exceptionally well. He's been on the BBC News, and to tell our children that here is somebody coming in who went to school only round the corner, standing in front of them, talking through his journey, talking about his difficulties that lots of our children can relate to, but then to say it was his own drive that managed him to make him successful and work for one of the most successful companies. So Inspire, we just believe, is the most powerful change of mindset that somebody can have. And therefore we put it into all our areas of learning.
And how was it formulated? Because you're quite a large school, right? So was that something that you did together as associate heads? Was that something that came from the exec head, or was that something that was sort of collegiate amongst the staff? And
a joint effort between everybody was involved. It was everybody's input. Because everybody had, like Rachel said, everybody has different experiences. So we wanted to bring that broad background together into one sort of clear message to everybody.
Fantastic.
It was at a time when there was lots of talk about lifelong learning.
Yes.
So we're going back 8 years when we started to really rethink things, and our saying and our absolute mantra is about learning now for future success.
Yeah.
That whole inspire around that saying, and Darren was quite pivotal in the work he did around that, really making sure that it was about children's lifelong journeys, but also about staff lifelong journeys, and that we all need to be inspired.
Correct, and it's about that collegiality, about how you bring everything together in order to make progress.
And it's about children being ready for that next stage of their education. So they might not leave us at the attainment level we want, but they have got that love of learning, and that will hopefully manifest itself when they move on to the next levels of learning. And our children go on to universities and have a really good onward journey in education.
And it's really important because sometimes we can get so fixated on academic results, but actually if you fail to inspire and engage and motivate and infuse people through that journey, then obviously it can become quite fixed. It can become quite one-dimensional, and that's when people can opt out of that sort of further education, etc., and kind of get frustrated.
It's about hooking into what motivates the child, what gets them interested in learning, and it might be some subject that's not really a focus that you want to drive as a school, but it's something that they're passionate about and they're going to be successful with as they get older.
And what was it that got you interested in learning specifically, Paul?
Mine was a history teacher at school, because I struggled when I was at school. My learning journey wasn't easy. So I sit in this chair sometimes and I think, how did I get here? Because looking back at my reports, it was a real struggle. But it was my history teacher who was then my head of sixth form, and just the way he taught lessons. It was all about story, got you inspired, and then he would do the facts and all of that background.
Great.
And he was the one that suggested maybe I looked at primary education as a career.
Fantastic. And then with that marvellous Inspire vision that you guys both have and have at the school, Central Park, how does that impact what you do for recruitment, what sort of teachers you look for, and how teachers are compelled to come to a beautiful school like this?
So one of our main focus whenever we're interviewing is about whether the teacher loves learning. You have to love learning. You have got to model loving learning, and that has got to never stop. So
how do you identify that? That's really interesting.
It's an enthusiasm that comes through when you're talking to somebody. You can spot it, and the experiences that people talk through. Being able to identify mistakes is one of the biggest learning behaviours that we have. So when you're interviewing, you're looking for that vulnerability, but you're also looking for that drive to want to make things better. So that would be one of our biggest points, looking for somebody who loves learning.
And somebody who's hardworking and wants to continue their personal learning journey as well. So, continue developing, because education keeps moving.
Absolutely.
It could go around in circles, but, keeps coming back to the same point at some point. But it's that continuous driving for them to want to continue learning and not just think, I've qualified as a teacher, that's it, I've done it now.
Which is what you...
you get some teachers who will just say, well, I'm here now, I'm qualified. It's not about that, it's about that ongoing. And as a school, we do offer current pedagogy, that it does influence the way that we teach, and Rachel does a lot of driving on that. And teachers being flexible, that flexibility that, it's not, the day is not set, things can throw you off course, how you react to that. So, that brings in your resilience and
adaptability.
That's the hardest thing for new teachers, because new teachers want a formula, or they want to be told exactly the way that learning happens, and it never happens like that. And that realisation with new teachers that there isn't a set way of doing things, and actually the best teaching is when you're in the classroom, letting children lead that learning, following the way the lesson goes. But it's incredibly difficult.
And not being safe all the time, taking risks. When teachers take risks with the learning.
What advice would you give to teachers then that come to an interview, they are passionate, they are enthusiastic? What's the one tip that you would give to them to really impart that enthusiasm and that passion for learning?
Understand your children. Take time to understand their interests. Understand your 30 different children, their needs, their wants, and their interests.
So how would someone share that then if they haven't met your children, for example? They come into an interview here, they want the job, they're really inspired and passionate. but they don't know your children. So how would they go about getting that across?
I think just that whole desire to want to make everyone achieve.
Yeah.
I'd expect to hear somebody saying about exposing talents in every different subject.
Sure.
I'd want to hear somebody saying they'll do everything and beyond for
Yes.
the children in their class. We have the saying of time, energy and effort. Teaching is a challenge, but it's the most rewarding challenge that you can possibly do. But it comes with time, energy and effort.
Yeah. It's about every child really mattering. Those individuals in the class, it's not a class, it's individuals that make up the class, and it's about treating each of those individuals as an individual to get the best out of them.
And what's been your sort of biggest recruitment success that you both would say?
The biggest recruitment success we're having at the moment is where our teachers are talking to colleagues or people they trained with, and we're having requests to come and work here. And that has actually been the most successful strategy that we've had.
Bravo.
And we actually had a member of staff who left due to personal circumstances, now commutes over 45 minutes to come back to our school, and that's happened twice. So yes, the legacy of Central Park and the vision of Central Park.
We did have a member of staff who left for a little while and then missed the school, so she came back, but she brought a teacher from out of the school with her.
Wow, Opening up
We
doors.
didn't do that. We didn't do that. They did that.
Awesome. So that all comes from that Inspire philosophy. How do you, because you're a large school, you've got 900 children here and dozens and dozens of staff. How do you go about keeping it all together and making sure that there is collegiality between everybody?
Clear communication, which, communication always comes up as an issue, but we do try to have as much communication as possible in whatever formats, just so staff then can't say, well, I didn't know. So we do it in a variety of ways.
So when you say clear communication, can you chop that down for us a little bit, Paul?
Yeah, making sure that we speak face to face with people. So not, email can be a demon out there. So having lots of face-to-face meetings, having that time to talk to people. Emails do happen, communications, notes around school, just making sure that people are told about things and messages are passed on in regular meetings for different groups. So it might be, small groups of people meeting, whole staff meetings. And different groups having different meetings that are appropriate for them. So the messages are passed through, and making sure that consistent messages are passed to all groups so that they know that that's we are all singing from the same hymn sheet.
And you're both associate head teachers here. How do you go about sharing responsibility and making sure that you're not sort of proverbially stepping on each other's toes?
I think it's fallen in quite naturally, I think, because we've both come from very different, we've got very different strengths and very different backgrounds. So mine's been more the safeguarding pastoral type of things.
And I'm more teaching and learning, and I think when you go into teaching you naturally find your way and your strength, particularly when you move into leadership. And I think what we've moved to since moving into our new roles is that we share an office. And what happens in that close room is that you learn from each other. So there are never conversations that Paul will have with members of staff that I'm not involved in, and likewise. And what comes with that is a shared understanding and a shared support to the different areas that we lead. So my understanding of the safeguarded pastoral team, behaviour and welfare has grown, and I would imagine that the same has happened. So, but we have been working together for a number of years, so it's been a long time coming.
So what would you say was the biggest thing that you've learned from Paul so far?
To not always react quickly, to take time, that time is a very helpful strategy. I'm going to steal your phrase, that you can't stress about the things that you can't deal with. That can't change. You can't stress about things you can't change. Just a calming. I'm very in the moment. I am very excited, and what Paul brings is the system and the management behind the ideas, so that then they don't create havoc with the staff. So there's a lot of learning.
I love what you said about you both do the meetings together and while you're in the same room, because then that creates that real synergy and ease of understanding.
And there may be times when we have different views on things and we'll sit and talk them through so that we get a clear message that we are going to take to staff.
Is that Is that something that has taken a long time in the past and then is now sort of filtered down to become a much shorter conversation?
It's definitely between ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think we have a really good understanding of where we're coming from.
Yeah.
So those conversations are shorter now than they were when we first worked together. I think we've got a good understanding of each other and our different views.
That's really, really helpful, yeah, for sure. And as a massive school with 900 children here, with school leadership and schools having large schools, it might be quite easy and common for schools to say, okay, well, we're going to hire everybody internally, but you've actually got a number of teachers from external organisations here. Tell us about that process and why you think that's important and why that's been important for Central Park.
It brings with it experiences from other settings. We grow a lot of our teachers through the training programs. We grow our teachers through Schools Direct, through PGCE. And what happens with that is it can become quite close thinking.
Right.
And we're constantly trying to educate our teachers that just because our vision is a great vision, it's not the only vision for teaching, and it works for our community.
Yeah.
And some of our teachers don't understand that a great school can be a great school in a very different way.
Yeah.
So having lots of teachers that come from different agencies, to come from different academies, all walks and talks of life, it brings with it just experiences, a different approach to maybe something we're doing, and we listen, and we take on board feedback, and I think that's probably one of our strengths, that self-reflection continually.
I think freshness as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just fresh ideas.
Yeah.
Fresh ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Fresh members of staff in the team.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what would you say has been the biggest impact of that? Because I know you've got like PE here, you've got art, you've got drama, you've got lots of different things from JNC and from other organisations. What would you say has been the visible impact for you?
It's bringing a specialist teacher with that area, with the background and the support they've got within their own organisations. It brings a really highly skilled, proficient professional to come in and deliver some subjects which then naturally impacts on staff. Children are more enthusiastic about the outcomes they get, and children are engaging in high quality lessons. And primary education is busy and it's challenging, and you know, that's not myself thinking about others, because I'm sure all they're all equally difficult and challenging, but it's incredibly challenging to maintain that high level every lesson of the day and have that knowledge of the pedagogy of each subject. So what it enables us to do is increase the expectations of some of our other subjects. Therefore, children get great provision, they're more engaged in learning, the behaviour therefore is better. So it just increases those standards for both staff and children.
But particularly in PE, I think the skills of some teachers that are coming through training are not as good as they were in the past.
Because teachers only get about 5 hours training in these specialist subjects, isn't it?
So I think by having coaches coming in with where it's their specialist area, they've got the skills and that deeper understanding of PE and what children need to be doing, and I think they provide more quality sessions to the children and gets that enthusiasm going. And we're talking about there being problems with children not being active and and if they're doing dull, boring activities for a PE lesson, they need to be playing things and being active and different ways and different games instead of doing the same things over and over again.
And it's very iterative PE, because you're constantly failing, you're constantly learning, and you're constantly practicing things in order to improve the performance. What's the bit of advice that you would give to a head teacher that is looking for external providers? How do they go about, because there's hundreds out there, right? How do they go about vetting the right one for their school environment?
Speak to colleagues and find out what's worked well for them. It might not be the right fit for their school, but word of mouth, somebody that you trust to give you a clear focus on what's quality learning. I think there are some not so good quality providers out there. So it's about what works well in your setting.
And I'd say just don't commit too early, and watch for the two-way communication on the standards. I think that's probably one of my biggest focal points is this organisation willing for feedback? Do they want my feedback? Is this a two-way partnership or is it one way? And are we looking to enable the staff within that setting? Is it a CPD opportunity for staff? Do they provide training?
Yeah.
Do they come in and monitor the standards?
Yeah.
Because otherwise that onus turns to the school, and of course it is the school's ownership, but it needs to be a two-way partnership.
And it needs to be driven by the external party as well,
does.
so standards are constantly raised. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you spoke about CPD, Paul. How do you, you're working with a number of other schools as well. Why is that important to you at Central Park, and how does it work in terms of the collaboration you have with other schools?
It's key learning points for us as a staff. You know, we learn a lot from each other inside, but it's bringing those newer ideas in from external places. Other schools that maybe have a different way of doing things, and there might be things we can pick, you know, be magpies and take the good things.
Sure.
And that might just inform our teaching, and there might just be fine tweaks that we can do at Central Park that will make a difference. We might not take on a whole thing, but it's just a different way of looking at something, or just some fine tuning that makes it even better at what we're providing.
Sure.
And you know, working with other schools has allowed us to send other staff out, see what's out there, and then bring fresh ideas back, but also share our practice in other settings.
Yeah, and on that, Rachel, what's been the biggest thing that's made you most proud in terms of the learning that you've done with other schools and what you've implemented here as a result?
Probably our values work. We stole the idea about 5 years ago from a colleague's school, and the brilliant thing about networking on courses is that you do network and you gain these contacts. And about 6 years ago I gained a contact in Greenwich, and we went into that setting, and it's a very similar school, and it was on a very similar journey. The behaviour was more challenging there than here, but the systems that they had in place, because of the root of the core values that they had, it was seamless. The way they were dealing with the behaviour was just with this common understanding about right and wrong. And therefore we came back, we took the ideas on board, but we worked with our staff, our children, our parents, and made it relevant to us. We started off with 12 values. We've now managed to take that down to our core values of 3. But I would say that was one of the biggest learning points from going into other schools. And of course now there is a big focus on character education, so we've been one step ahead because of that research, because of that CPD opportunity, and now we're beginning to continue to work on it. Actually, there are so many things that we take all the time from other schools. You know, some people, when they show people around their school, they're oozing in pride that they don't self-reflect. We constantly self-reflect on our school. And then when we go to other settings, we're constantly looking for ideas. It doesn't matter whether you're there for a course, we bring something back, don't we?
I went to one school and had lovely posters in the toilets, so and I put them in our toilets. So it's about just that appreciation of your staff. So it might be the only time they get a quiet time, so they go in there and there's a sign facing them as they sit on the toilet to say, well done, well done on a good job. So.
And you spoke about the new Ofsted framework while we were off camera. Tell us about that and how you're going to go about implementing that here at the school.
So we have always had that vision, and it's interesting when you go on courses at the moment because they talk about it being a new curriculum, and it's not a new curriculum. The new curriculum happened a few years ago. It's about Ofsted ensuring that the rationale behind the newer curriculum is being delivered to all schools. So we feel really excited about the Ofsted changes. We do know we've got a lot of work to do because it's again maintaining those standards in all of the non-core subjects, and for some of our staff that's really away from their comfort zone. They would have experienced poor lessons when they were at school. Their experiences could be quite negative, and as we've spoken about already, lots of the trained teachers that come through have had a very small amount of experience of actually learning how to deliver those subjects. So we've got a lot of work to do on subject knowledge moving forward into the new academic year. Our programme that we've created for the curriculum we feel is strong. We worked with the community on it. It's locally relevant, it's nationally relevant, it's globally relevant. Our children wanted it, and we've had some great feedback from parents and children about the content that we continue to evaluate, so we'll continue to do that. But we now really do have to have a big push on our training in all subjects.
And you spoke about community in there. What are the great great things that you're doing with the community, because that's one of the things that I love about this school, right? It's very community driven, and the community is at the heart and soul of everything that you do. So tell us about what you're doing with parents and how you're going about.
Whenever we're looking to make changes, we do consultations. So this year we've set up, we've got a staff council, we've also got a parent council.
Wow.
So they put themselves forward to come and join. So they meet every half term.
Yeah.
And it's things that are coming up, so things that policies that we need to review, their input on ideas. So there's some challenging conversations because they've got their very clear views on what they want, which is what we want from the parents. And they're asking us challenging questions. We're asking their advice on how we take things forward, what would be the best way to approach things, how to communicate things to those to the community in a wider sense. So that's been started this year, and it's been successful, and it'll continue to grow and develop. But it's good because we're now getting those parents that are really interested and really want to contribute and making those really valued contributions and making us think and sit up. And the things that we might take for granted, we're now fully aware of what parents' views are on things, so we can deal with those at an early stage rather than parents feeling like they're having something done to them. They're part of that process now.
And what's been the biggest challenge with that process, or any of the sort of collaborative process? Because I'm sure there's been some challenges and some moments of friction, misunderstandings. How did you go about dealing with that sort of challenge?
It's hugely relevant at the moment. So communication is absolutely key. We at the beginning stages finding the best ways to communicate with our parents. It's a changing time. Technology's moving forward.
Absolutely.
So you're constantly having to find out the best way to communicate to all of our parents. So that's been something we've had to work on, and also making sure that it's very controlled in the way that we gain those discussions or gain the contributions. We've got lots of parents who are very vocal, but it's about maintaining focus and going through a controlled agenda. And it's worked really well. We're having the clear focus, planning ahead, and then increasing the communication. We've had huge success.
Brilliant.
We talk about best way to communicate because we always think that the best way would be text.
But
we find out that the parents find the best way to communicate is a whiteboard in the middle of the playground with a message on it.
Wow, fantastic, interesting.
So we've learned that that's one of the best ways to hit our parents.
Simple and effective communication. Talking on that, what's been I'm going to ask you some quick fire round questions now and sort of go into that and find out a little bit more about yourself. So what would you say is like the most common overused phrase in school, Rachel?
Keep going. I think that is mine. I do say keep going. Keep going.
Mine would be don't stress about things you can't control.
And it is, because I said that one. It definitely is. Yeah, because I'm constantly stressing out.
What's been the funniest moment in schools this month?
Oh, in schools.
Mine was when we were having a walk around with our school improvement partner in nursery, and she bent down to talk to him about what the activity he was doing, and he gave her a peck on the cheek, completely out of the blue. And it was just a wonderful moment.
It was adorable. It was a really lovely moment. I think mine would be seeing actually the nursery teachers again, or actually we're in Greenwich Park as well, so those two. The nursery teachers dressed up as chicks with their large wings, and that was just a fantastic moment. And then at Greenwich Park, just seeing the children after they complete their assessments, just rolling around, having fun together. Just really making each other laugh, simplicity. They had a ball, they were doing jokes, and just engaging in that was fantastic. It was a really great moment.
Being fun and happy.
Absolutely.
It seems like a really fun and engaging place to work, which is always nice to see.
It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say was like your favourite book that has really engaged you, really inspired you?
So I did a lot of work on culture last year, started last year, and one of the books that's quite pivotal following on from the presentation we'd seen was a book called Legacy, written by, it's based on the All Blacks, and I constantly go back to that. It's a fantastic book about team spirit, the way it's internalised. And actually the staff responded so well to some of their key strategies.
Brilliant.
I found that one really refreshing actually, and I do do go back to that when I've got challenges around culture.
That's one that I'm going to go away and read now.
It's really good.
Yeah,
It's really good.
I'll add that to the reading list for sure.
Mine would be factfulness, Hans Rosling, which is, he works for the World Health Organization, and it's about how we see these figures and we have a perception of the world. It's not exactly a true perception.
Yeah.
So reading the book has changed my view on the world.
Interesting.
It's a fascinating book, and it just makes you question the things you're told by the media.
Yeah.
Just about figures,
Yeah.
Statistics,
Yeah.
unpicking them that little bit further.
Have you read Dan Ariely's book, Predictably Irrational?
No.
That's a really good book. It comes along the same sort of lines of like understanding human behaviour and how humans are predictably irrational. So we do really irrational things, but they're predictable, and we think that we're very logical and very smart and very intelligent, but actually we do things that are sometimes often the reverse of that.
Well, the Hans Rosling book, he gave people multiple choice questions about a range of things. So it might be how many girls complete education in the world, and chimpanzees got the answer right more times than professionals, because they overthink it and think things are worse than they actually are.
Absolutely. And talking about thinking and teaching, what would you say if you had a magic toolbox and you can only have 3 tools in there? What 3 tools would you give to teachers to go, this is how to deliver an effective and engaging curriculum?
It's hard. 3 tools for them to deliver.
Passion.
Yeah.
And enthusiasm.
Fun.
It's essential. Good subject knowledge.
Yeah.
Humour.
I love that, because when you're humorous, you can really engage and captivate the learners, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be humour or a sense of fun.
Nice. Rachel, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure having a conversation on camera with you both. You guys are both remarkable, inspiring leaders that really inspire me to make a difference, and I'm really glad and pleased that you guys are making an incredible difference, not only in your own school, but in the other schools that you're working with as well, in terms of the training and professional development. So I really want to thank you for that and acknowledge you for that.